Things are getting very crazy right now between former Skid Row singer Sebastian Bach and current Tuff singer Stevie Rachelle. What's going on, everyone? You're watching Sight Sounds Flavors on YouTube, sightsoundsflavors.com. If at any point in time you like the video, smash that like button. Also, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, and leave a comment down below. Well, I'm sure you guys have heard of Skid Row. They had Youth Gone Wild. They had 18 in Life. They had I Remember You. They put out records that honestly defined an era. And Sebastian Bach left the band or was fired from the band, however you want to look at it, back in 1996. Stevie Rachelle is the founder of Metal Sludge. She's also the frontman and lead singer of the rock band Tuff. They were the kings of the Sunset Strip. They had a #3 video on MTV back about 33 years ago. Hopefully you were watching it that week. And I got to tell you something. These guys are going at it. And it doesn't really have anything to do with them initially. Sorry, I was cleaning. That's why I'm perspiring like that. I mean, this is a pretty serious feud, but I'm not to the point of wiping, sweat off my forehead just yet. But I will tell you, though, things are getting to the point of no return, because apparently, Skid Row now has a new singer. The singer that they had couldn't hang in there, the other commitments, that sort of thing, have to pay the bills, And they've been through a lot of singers in the past. One singer actually battled cancer, and so, they've never stopped touring. And they put out a new record after, well, it's not new, but a record after Sebastian, Thick Skin, which was huge. It topped the charts in Haiti and Nepal. And the thing is that, Sebastian, I think, has been waiting for that call that just never happened, come back to the band. Let's get the band back together. Vince Neil returned to Motley Crue. Stephen Pearcy returned to Rat. Faster Pussycat got back together briefly, So he was expecting that call. Axl reunited with Slash and the bass player. So the thing is that, everybody was expecting this to happen with Skid Row, and it just never did. They may have had some initial talks. Sebastian talks to Rob Affuso, the drummer, and they sort of get along. But, Snake, Scotty, and Rachel, that is who runs Skid Row, and they don't want any part of Sebastian. And so I guess with this last flare-up, and then there was a fan in the audience with a Skid Row shirt, it's just getting to the point where, you've got this iconic rock god, Sebastian Bach, fighting it out now, with one of the greatest singers of the Sunset Strip in the late 1980s. And it's just not a good look, you know what I mean? The youngsters are all up in arms, and this is not a good look. You got all these 40-year-olds taken to the message boards, the last thing we want is for these kids to go at it. And then you've got the hardcore, more age-specific age demographic of Tuff and Skid Row, people in their late 50s and mid-60s. And these guys really can't afford to be fighting, even online, because, you don't want somebody saying, don't you talk about Stevie Rachelle that way, and then just keeling over from a heart attack. So the point is that, at this point in time, we want things that are low impact on blood pressure and anxiety and stress. And this is not a good look. Plus, it's not a good look. It's not going to help Sebastian get any closer to rejoining Skid Row and playing some of the biggest flea markets in the world. The reality of the matter is that these guys, if they're going to come together, they're going to come together on their own, but it's not going to come by way of Sebastian, singling out fans or attacking them for having a lot of singers. I mean, I think that is pretty common sense. It should be, right? I mean, you're not going to get anywhere by attacking people. If Sebastian said, hey, I put Thick Skin into the, CD player, or I listened to it on the turntable, this is actually not bad. A comment like that might go a long way with legendary bass player Rachel Bolan. He might say, well, wow, I'm surprised that legendary frontman Sebastian Bach had this to say. And as legendary bass player of Skid Row, I'm going to give our former legendary singer a call. And then it's a legendary call. But that's how it would start. Not by Sebastian calling them Shit Row, that's the band that got rid of me. What are they doing now? Well, they're playing a lot bigger venues than you are. And that's what they're doing. And the thing is that I met Sebastian at the Button South in Fort Lauderdale. It was 1997 or 1998, I believe. Legendary club, huge club. And he was with a guy named the Mountain Man or something like that, or the Island Man, just a really weird, goofy looking guy. Think of like the lead singer from Autograph, but 6'7". And then he had Richie Scarlett, you know, from Fraley's Comet. Freaking amazing guitar player, great person, great persona. I mean, that would have been, a band made up of Richie Scarlett types would have been great. Not like, you know, the Mountain Man from the circus or whatever. But the thing is, and it's not because of his appearance, it's because of the fact that he's in a band with the guy from Skid Row. Now, you got to understand, Skid Row is going through a bunch of weird phases. I mean, this was 97, 98. They had done Subhuman Race, which was like a grunge album. Sebastian was out of the band. He went from playing alongside Pantera to playing the Button South, which is a great club. It's no longer there. It's like, it's been changed like a million times, like a bunch of different Spanish places. But, you know, merengue y salsa. Yo soy Latino. I'm Spanish, by the way, so don't go, you know, trying to like get all woke on me. But I'm just saying, it's been a bunch of different Spanish clubs. But when it was the Button South, I mean, it drew all, I mean, Ace went there, Peter went there, LA Guns played there. I mean, you're talking about like the big bands. They all went through there, even during their heyday, because if you're doing a show at the arena or some Miami arena, you know, you want to do a little gig for fun, you go to a club, you know what I mean? And that's just, you know, even Kiss was doing it in the late 80s. Motley did it at the Limelight for their, was it the Decade video or the Decadence video? I don't know. But, you know, so it wasn't like totally unheard of. Plus, even if they weren't playing there, it was totally not uncommon for rockers to go to clubs to see, you know, the up and coming talent and pick up chicks and whatnot, you know, have some beers and have a bunch of pictures taken of them with the fans. So, I mean, again, it wasn't like he was completely out of the water, but yeah, he had gone from these big venues, stadiums and arenas to actually headlining a club. And, you know, it was, and it wasn't just him either. It was not just him either. I think he was, if I'm not mistaken, I think it was him and LA Guns. If you ask me, I think it was them, because I'm pretty sure that was what it was. It was LA Guns and Sebastian Bach. That's you know, and LA Guns, I mean, that's a club band. So again, I mean, they were a club band at their height, you know. So the reality of the matter is that Sebastian was probably in a really kind of bad mood. But when he was back there, he smoked a joint, he talked to us. This whole video became my Button South recollection, but there's a point. He was smoking, he was still in good spirits, and when people asked him what's going on with Skid Row, he's like, I don't know, I wish him luck. He was in a much better mood. But then, that was a year out of Skid Row, if even that. If it was 98, it was a year and a half. If it was 97, it might not have been a full year. And, you know, and he was mobbed. I mean, there's people all over him, you know, but he was still so much more positive. And now it's like everything that has to do with Skid Row is negative, 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 negative. Why would they want him back in the band? Plus, if they brought him back in the band, he would be a 1/5 member, not of Skid Row itself, because they're never going to give up the name, but in terms of the vote, in terms of the say, in terms of the meetings, he would be 1/5. And I think that's a point that Rachel, Scotty, and Snake have tried to sell in the limited conversations they've had with him, whether through text, phone, or maybe even in the same room. And I think he wants to come back as to where it's 80% Sebastian, and the other four guys each get 5% and are lucky to be like discernible in the shadows. And it's just not that kind of band. It wasn't that kind of band when he joined, but I think because they rose to the top so quickly, they were able to hold their nose, kind of like the Warrant guys did, because those guys, the founding members, again pushed into the background until they took over the band once and for all. And Janie was still very much alive. It's not like they got a new singer because he passed. They were out there touring, selling merch, selling records. They had follow-up records. They didn't obviously sell as good as the heyday, but they were still signing record deals. CMC, Spitfire, they were still making money off their music. So hey, they were winning. And Janie was very much alive and very much playing golf and occasionally, you know, with a solo band or something like that. But they never gave up control. And that's what happened with Skid Row. Like, Sebastian became Skid Row, and he was essentially a hired gun. I mean, they hired him after being around a long time. You know, I'm not to say that he's not a member of the original lineup and the founding lineup. Well, not the founding lineup, the original lineup, classic lineup, whatever. Actually, not even original lineup. He was part of the classic lineup. They may have had a singer before him. So then he would not be the original singer. I don't care if you got a singer for 2 months. If you played and you were billed and you know there's pictures or an interview somewhere, that's your original singer. You know, don't try to rewrite history now like Motley did with Odin, because Odin really was Motley's original singer. They may not have actually played anywhere. I think they did because there's pictures, but he was in the band for more than a couple of days actually, and I think they had even some of their Motley Crue songs already written. So really, technically, Odin is Motley Crue's original singer. Vince Neil is Motley Crue's classic singer. John Corabi is Motley Crue's replacement singer. But I mean, I wouldn't call Vince a replacement to a guy that's been there 2 months. That's totally John Corabi. But I certainly wouldn't call Vince the original singer when there was an original singer and it wasn't him. That being said, like Pantera, they had 4 albums that they don't consider part of their history. They're part of their history. But the point is though is that Sebastian has a very strong claim to all things Skid Row because of what they did during their heyday. But he doesn't have the right to have basically, that frontman status, because it's not that kind of day anymore. And the band, they took over and they're never going to go back. They may have allowed it in the heyday because the money was coming in, and they're not going to allow it now. And the funny thing is that the money could still come in, not like in the 80s, inflation-wise, not like in the 80s, but, and I say inflation-wise because, yeah, now they're making a lot more money, more than they were making then, but you can't compare the spending power of money today to money then. But I'm saying with inflation taken into account, they could still do a pretty good amount of business. I don't think they'll do as much as the 80s, but I think that they'll do a pretty good amount of business. And it's just never going to happen. Because unlike Gene and Paul, Rachel, Scotty, and Snake are not willing to have to deal with that guy just to make money, no matter how astronomical the paychecks may be. That's the thing. These guys have already been on the top, and I don't think that they ever actually fell from the top because, like I said, Skid Row never stopped working, and I don't think they squandered their money away. So I think that they've seen what being superstars is. I think they've retained a lot of it in terms of their homes and cars and liquidity. But I don't think that the prospect of doing it again really is all that exciting and attractive to them. As a way to hold their nose to bring Sebastian Bach back. So that's the thing. So really, honestly, and he hasn't changed. He's still an asshole. So I mean, the reality of the matter is that I don't see them bringing him back. And I like Sebastian, but he's an asshole. I wouldn't want to be in a band with Sebastian because he would want to take over everything, and he's tall. I'm tall too, and tall people with a little bit of power can be very dangerous. Like he probably walks around thinking. Like Dee Snider. The only difference is Dee Snider is Twisted Sister. Sebastian Bach is not Skid Row. In other words, you've got 3 very, very dominant personalities in that band, in addition to Sebastian, and none of these guys are beta. None of these guys are going to bend over. None of these guys are going to allow him to, A, come back, B, take over, C, they go back to the background. Not going to happen. So, but this feud between legendary lead singer Sebastian Bach of the multi-platinum rock band Skid Row and the club guy Stevie Rachelle, honestly, is just not a good look. So really, I hope that, things are able to resolve themselves as expeditiously as the Israeli-Palestinian conflict.